So far, so good. Yeah, close enough. All right, guys, welcome. What are we on here? Episode 8. No more Mr. Nice Guy. I figured these two episodes are probably going to be the most watched ones because they're about getting the love life that you deserve, which is a clever choice of words. Or I guess the sex you want, strategies for satisfying. If you haven't been paying attention, so we've been doing these for about 8 episodes now. Each episode becomes a chapter. A lot of it is on removing the unattractive behavior in your life. In fact, it's almost solely about removing the unattractive behavior in your life. Now that we're on it, so the first part, last episode was talking about a lot of the sexual hang-ups guys have, a lot of the problems they have, a little bit of the trad fantasy stuff, but I won't bore you with it. Honestly, go back, check it. This one here, it's a bit different. So take everything written about nice guys in this book. Their toxic shame, their sacrifice of self, their approval seeking, their doing the opposite of what works, their indirectness, their caretaking, their covert contracts, their controlling behavior, their fear, their dishonesty, their difficulty receiving, their dysfunctional relationships, their loss of masculine energy. Now put them all in a great big container, shake them up, open the lid, look inside, and you'll have a pretty good idea on how nice guys do sex. I like that. For nice guys, sex is all where their abandonment and dysfunctional survivor mechanisms are focused and magnified. Any guy I've ever worked with has had significant problems in this route, and the problem is manifested in many ways, but most of the common are. And this resonates well with a lot of the new guys we'd have coming into the Married Red Pill or Ask the Married Red Pill. So the first one is not getting enough. This is by far the most common sexual complaint. The focus of this problem is frequently directed at seemingly sexually inhibited and unavailable partners or the unavailability of women in general. Now, when you bring this up, let's say you bring it up with we call it blue pill, but it's essentially any social circle, a co-ed space, women, nice guys, and they'll generally say your expectations are too high. You've heard the argument that if why is a guy watching prawn when he's got, the cow at home or whatever you want to say the saying is. The problem is it kind of misses an underlying issue here. And it's something about frame that we've been talking about since the beginning. Rolo, Rich, myself, John, Troy, everybody. It's that you are the arbiter of your own decisions. You're your only judge. You're your only higher power that you have to answer to. So the question isn't how much are you getting and is that regular or is that good? It's that what do you want? And a lot of guys don't answer this. They they ask in this nice guy roundabout way. For example, very common, if a guy asks a question, he doesn't ask a question about himself. He asks other people about their experiences, and then he can quietly, secretly compare it to his own life experience and see if it matters. So he'll ask guys, how many times a week is enough? Is it 3? Is it 4? Never tells you anything about his. And so guys will... Usually the married guys, they catch on to this really quickly what the guy's doing. It's like, don't worry about how much I'm having. How much are you having? And why is it not enough? At some point, it gets to the thing where it's hard for somebody else to keep up. If you're one of those 4 times a day, 7 days a week type people, expecting girl to keep up with that for, 2 decades straight, it's probably a little bit much, but most people aren't there. Most people, you can kind of tell. Anyways, the other problem is having to settle for less than satisfying. That's duty sex, that's starfish, we've called it both. Nice guys often settle for bad, believing that it's better than nothing at all. Anyways, the blame is often focused on the nice guy's partner. And I think it's Gavin McInnes, he actually mentioned it. It was very clever, is that there's no such thing as a girl who's bad in bed because you can just ragdoll her wherever you want. And there's some truth to it. I think what a lot of guys reference there is they want sexual aggression in their women, which they don't really come that way. I mean, some do, but in general, sexual aggression is like a male thing. So, I don't know. I'm not suggesting that guys are searching for women that act just like men, but it does seem to lay out in some of the ways these things manifest. The next one is about dysfunction. This usually takes the form of an inability to get or maintain your status, obviously, or prematurely finishing. Then sexual repression. Some guys claim to have little or no interest in it. More often than not, these men are actually engaged in some form of activity that they believe is best kept out of sight. And this is where a lot of the religious indoctrination stuff comes in. So if you'll notice, a lot of people in the church right now, whenever they're caught, their wife's not doing it for them, they end up watching, the Hub online or whatever, and they always blame it on addiction. It's like the idea of a guy wanting to get some is just unheard of, and it's got to be shameful, toxic shame. Remember that? So part of this here is just acting without shame. It's like, yeah, the whole reason I got together with you is because, like, this is the main part of it. Everything else is like the afterthought, or it's beneficial to you and it's nice to have. But without this, we're not in a relationship. We're just roommates. So it really is the keystone that holds everything together. The next one is compulsive behavior. And this can include the opposite of nofap, addiction to porn, affairs, peep shows. What the? I guess he wrote this in the 70s. Do they have peep shows anymore? Do those exist? Actually, I do know they exist, but I can't say why on the stream, so I'll save it for Patreon. If one of you guys are from the Patreon, mention this later, and I'll bring up a story. You'll love it. 900 numbers. Yeah, this is definitely in the 80s. Cyber sex. And prostitution. So when you add all these dynamics together, you end up with a breed of man who doesn't have very much, and what he does get isn't very good. Even though nice guys have a tendency to focus on the factors outside of themselves, the opposite is closer to the truth. It's you yourself who are masters at making sure your lives are less than satisfying. A couple of the reasons it goes in here: shame and fear. So I won't beat a dead horse on this one, but shame and fear are big on this one. So let's take a situation where a guy's a nice guy. He's very unassertive. He's decided to sacrifice himself, including his physical health, to help those around him. So usually that ends up where the dad bod thing comes in. He's basically made himself as unattractive as possible, and it's reflected in the girl making excuses not to want to smash. So part of this is his shame, hiding his badness, hiding his insecurities, hiding his fear of abandonment. It ends up making this self-defeating cycle where he ends up not getting any because he's unassertive for it. He's also not getting any because those unassertive behaviors make the girl less attracted to him. So there's shame in just not admitting you have needs and not admitting it to the other person, because the communication doesn't work. You can't talk your way into a girl's pants. It's really about admitting to yourself that this is a problem, and it's a problem that you, for a large part, have created for yourself, and the other person has just followed your lead. Leadership goes both ways. And he brings up a whole bunch of reasons. I mean, any reason you could think of, that's fine. I'm not going to get into them because a lot of these ones are not PG-13 words. But anyways, every time a nice guy has a feeling or is in a situation, he must negotiate through all this unconscious baggage. Nice guys must find numerous creative ways to avoid or distract themselves from their shame and fear. Unfortunately, these avoidance and distraction mechanisms prevent you from having much of anything that resembles a good sex life. Avoiding situations and opportunities, trying to be good, hiding compulsive behaviors, repressing their life energy, and settling for bad stuff. A couple strategies that we have developed over the years for this stuff. We'll start with the bad stuff, like the starfish and duty sex. For the most part, those manifest because a girl knows, like they kind of know that without anything, if you just completely maintain a dead bedroom, there's only so much somebody can put up with before it eventually becomes untenable situation. And so they kind of just put in the bare minimum, just lay there. And in one case, I can remember of a buddy of mine and his soon-to-be ex-wife asking him if he was done yet, which, okay, for the ladies watching this one, if you ever ask a man, are you done yet? Like, turtle up. I'm just saying, out of all the things that'll make a guy go and lose his mind, that's probably the one. So what do you do then if you're settling for bad stuff? And this is where abundance comes in. Everybody talks about abundance, and everybody thinks abundance means all I ever do is 9s and 10s and they're knocking at my door trying to get at me. It's not the case. In this case, if it's something that's not up to your standard, you just get up, walk away. It's such an unheard of strategy, and it's so simple in its thing. It's just saying, it's essentially setting a boundary. Now, I've talked before, boundaries are maintain attraction, attention, and commitment. And you pull those commensurate with the boundary that was crossed. In this case, your boundary is, I'm not going to put up with 4 out of 10 smashing. I want 6 at least, a 6. 6 is fair. We're not talking about lazy Sundays. We're talking about normal stuff. Anyways, so it's not working for you. You get up. You're not mad. You're not hurt. You're just very dispassionately enforcing your boundaries. What's the matter? And like I said before, girls will say everything from the perspective of their ego. Everything they say is from their ego. So what is this? And that's assuming that something's wrong with her, so she has to project it on you. What's wrong? What's wrong? Just nothing's wrong. Wasn't working. We'll try it again another time. And that's it. You don't get mad. You don't raise your voice. You don't do what guys do when I calmly said this, because I guarantee you the guys that make an effort to calmly say anything are anything but calm. And they're using that to hopefully manipulate people into not seeing. Hiding the evidence. Talked about it way back in episode 2. Yeah, you truly have to be okay with it. It's just like, all right, well, if your boundary was you weren't going to put up with anything less than a girl's best, then if you're not getting your best, well, that's just your boundary. That's not your emotions. Repressing life energy. I don't even know what that means, but I mean, whatever. People who talk about energy and swear by it, they seem to know. So good for you. Hiding compulsive behaviors. This one here. So we don't have a lot of data on this one, but if you like things in bed, obviously going for them is a good thing. But I've never seen that kind of compulsive hiding being an issue that's so prevalent that guys have to talk about it. So for the most part, my best guess is that this is the kind of thing that sorts itself out once you deal with the frequency, once you deal with the enthusiasm, and then the kink kind of comes afterwards. There's a lot of guys that talk about theirs, and some of them are like, yeah, it's not for me, and some, whatever, do what you got to do, shoving things where they shouldn't be, but whatever. I'm not here to judge. The point is, once you've handled everything else, this one kind of sorts itself out. Trying to be good. So here's the thing too. When he says trying to be a good lover, I don't agree with that one per se. Like, obviously you want to be able to last more than a minute, but it's not like a lot of guys will end up getting hang-ups because they focus so much on the other person that they forget them. They forget that they're in the moment, and the other person kind of gets that vibe of being pressured into experiencing pleasure. And I've said it before. I've said it a ton of times that girls hate that responsibility put onto them for the outcome of a situation, and they will actively sabotage it. So it'll completely bring the girl out of the mood. So I would suggest the other. If you're at the point where you're not getting it at the quality you like, or if you're getting duty sex, this is the other strategy, by the way, for starfishing, is that you just caveman. It's what we call it. Go at it, get yours, get out. She wants to act like a wormhole, treat her like a wormhole. Now, a lot of people get mad on that one, but it establishes that your pleasure is in your own control, and the same thing for other people. So basically, you're giving expectations to those around you and in yourself, which tends to be good. Avoiding situations and opportunities. This one, I saved this for last because this one is so common. So let's put this standard scenario. I've seen it happen a dozen times at least. What happens is a guy will, he'll say, I don't have enough frequency. I want to work on it. So we're like, all right, go through Jen. Get yourself to the gym, update your wardrobe, like all the basic, don't be unattractive stuff. Build your attractiveness, build your boundaries, build a life outside of her. Generally all the nice guy stuff, we kind of like shed all that and then start gaming her. And so what'll happen is guys will do this, and then it'll get to a point where the girl starts initiating more, and the guy shuts it down or says something stupid or purposefully, like it's he always says it's not on purpose. The guys always do, but you couldn't accidentally sabotage things this well. That's all I'm saying. And so they'll get to a point where they could have had some, and they say something or do something, or they say and do something, and then basically sabotage it. And you can tell it's a revenge fantasy in their head. Now, we've talked about it a lot. I'd have to pull up the post. I can't remember where it is, but nothing keeps you beta. And in this case, I mean beta as in when people talk about beta being good and alpha being good and beta being bad. So nothing makes you less attractive, I guess is a better choice of terms here, than revenge fantasies. A lot of guys just assume that meant single guys. The single guy who sits there, yeah, she turned me down in grade 10, grade 11, and grade 12, but she's going to hit 30, and when she does, she's going to be fat and ugly, and nobody's going to want her, which doesn't happen. But it's those seething coping strategies built on revenge that tend not to work. And this is actually one of the ways they manifest that people don't articulate enough. It's like you're getting what you want, but because they haven't suffered as much as you do, you would rather make them feel bad than just get yours. And it's like what's that saying go? Biting off the nose to spite the face or something like that. Anyways, so it's good to know what you want out of life, because if you don't know what you want out of life, and like we talked about last episode, if you're not objective about what your best interests are, you're going to start falling over to these emotional best interests, which is exactly like this, where if your problem is frequency in your relationship and you've solved frequency in your relationship, that is not the time to be punishing somebody else for an imagined, or even if it's like it's a real slight, but like you wanted to fix a problem and it's fixed. Stop worrying about how everybody feels and just enjoy success. He talks a bunch more about his examples. I don't like them because he brings up like 900 numbers and stuff. So they're a little bit old. I don't think Zoomers and millennials are going to get it. I guess we can go into the sexual energy part. I don't know. Repressing their life energy prevents nice guys from getting what they want. This is not an endorsement. I'm just going to read it here for completeness. So when a boy reaches adolescence, he must begin negotiating the turbulent seas of learning to relate to the opposite sex. If he is to have any hope of securing a girlfriend and someday getting some, he must figure out what it takes to make a girl notice him and approve of him. That's the burden of performance. So far, so good. For some boys, this process seems to come fairly easily. If they happen to be good looking, have status, from an affluent family, attracting girls may not be overly difficult. Once you exclude the minority of adolescents listed above, you have the majority of boys who have no clue what it takes. At this point, many young guys decide that maybe by being nice that they're going to stand out. So this strategy, and it's formed in adolescence, of trying to attract women by being nice, many nice guys carry into adulthood. That's a funny thing too on this. So it's everybody can agree in the chat that this is a completely unworkable strategy. It doesn't work. It's never worked ever. So why do people do it? Like there's not if you walk up to a storefront every day and the owner punches you in the face, after like the 5th or 6th time, you're just going to stop walking by that storefront. But why is this the case? Well, here's the thing. There's reinforcement that comes in it. And this comes with that lack of, or with the validation seeking behaviors. When you're seeking validation, the same stuff we talked about, abandonment and the need to please your mother and replacing your mother with another girl. So girls don't like giving rejection. It's a threat to them from the caveman days. If you turn down Cave Chad, he might hit you with the cave chuck cudgel. So girls tended to be very delicate with sexual rejection. So a lot of the time, these guys will get a little whiff of validation. It's like, oh, we should just be friends. Oh, I like you as a friend. Oh, we're such great people. Oh, you're going to find a girl. All those words, which everybody assumes to mean they're lies, they're not lies. Like once you understand womanese or subtext, it screams out at you saying, don't get that thing anywhere near me. And that's all it is. But like, I'll give you the littlest bit of validation I can to make you happy, and then you give me as much as you want. They're flat out asking you to be in the friend zone, and most guys are so desperate they'll take it. Again, it's no different than starfish. Just get up, no, this isn't working for me, and walk away. It's all you have to do. But it's such an easy thing to say, but you got to get past all that built up nonsense that we've talked about for the last 7 hours. So I guess this counts as energy. I don't know, whatever. Ironically, trying to be a nice guy robs him. Oh, here's the part where he gets to it. Robs the man of his life energy. The more a nice guy seeks approval and tries to do it right, the tighter he clamps the lid down on any kind of energy that might actually draw a person to him. So I don't know why they call it energy. It's just behavior. That's all it is. So when I frequently hear nice guys complain about women not being attracted to them, the problem is once they've repressed all this, they have little about them to get anyone's attention or turn them on. What they're saying is you're an unattractive schmuck. You can call that life energy if it makes you feel better, but you're just a schmuck. Okay, settling for bad stuff. I mean, we've already talked about that. Getting the stuff you want. He has some breaking free exercises. There's a bit here about coming out of the closet. I don't think that's applicable to us, but if anybody wants to know and that's the way you swing, let me know in the chat. We can delve into that. I don't have a lot of experience, so you probably don't want to be hearing it from me anyway. He brings up a good story here. So taking matters into your own hands helps nice guys get what you want. And this is the key to a lot of it. We've often said that for most failing nice guys, they aren't making things happen. They're letting life happen to them. Oh, that lighting's really low. Here, let's brighten this up a little bit here. Oh, dang Toronto. Much better. So letting life happen to you. And this is what most people do. Most people don't make decisions. They prefer to be inactive, because if you don't make any decisions, then any decisions you make is the wrong decision. It's funny because if you remember the trolley thing, the trolley question, which is an ethical study where you have a trolley on the tracks. There's 5 people on one side, 1 on the other, or multiple people on one side, 1 on the other. And if you don't stop it, it's going to hit 5, 6 people. But if you hit the switch, it'll kill the one for sure. So what do you do on that? It's an interesting question when you apply it to here, because, I mean, normally when you think of just harm, then there's 2 routes you can go on this. One is, I want to save as many people as possible, so I'd hit the thing and hit the 1 person versus the 5 people getting run over. The alternate one is, well, those people, like, I didn't cause this situation, but by pulling the lever and hitting that 1 person, I'm actually going to kill him. So they take that role of, I'm not going to cause any harm myself, but harm happens outside of the universe. That one is generally seen as like a live and let live kind of attitude, which is good. Everybody talks about being stoic and, you know, nothing bothers you, nothing bothers me. Well, here's the problem with it. When you end up in these kind of situations, in a dead relationship, a dying relationship, and smash-free relationship, I guess we can call it, you get to the point where this inaction and this inactivity causes more problems than it solves, and it's letting life happen to you. So for a certain, and that's the beauty of that ethical question, is that it's really context dependent. So in the case of getting your needs met in a land of abundance, yeah, you're going to have to flip that trolley cart more often. And that's just the way it is. Guys may feel bad because, like I said, you hit the switch, you actually physically killed the one guy as opposed to letting the 5 people get killed. But at the same time, you're taking action. So you're controlling things. And it's the only way to really survive in this stuff. And it makes you feel bad. And it should make you feel bad. If you've been a supplicative jerk for the past, I don't know, however old you are, 15 to 30 years, whatever, then yeah, all of a sudden you becoming an attractive, fit, and an alpha male, or whatever you want to call it. If you've just started being that for like 2 weeks, of course it's going to feel awkward. That's called discomfort. That's your ego telling you, no, man, I want you comfortable. Come back here. Come back here and tell her you should be friends. And a great example of this is actually a guy from the forums. So he's on TRT right now, and he has this weird fetish with shoving things up his wahoo. And he's like completely shameless about it, which I think is hilarious. Like I said, it's not my thing, but when you're talking about encouraging nice guys, and this is where Glover is kind of going with this, encourage recovering nice guys to bring their sexual shame out of the closet, he's flat out led with it. This is what I got. What are you going to do about it? And it's great because it's like a exaggerated, quintessential example of a guy who has no shame about the sex life that he wants in his life. And he's been crushing it, which is awesome for him. And it's one of those things I kind of like, because if you remember, we talked before about having to build your own men's group and start to bond with other men. It's something I've noticed from my time on ship with guys, is that you're so close together for so often, in that any embarrassment, it just goes away. Like, again, I'll save those stories for Patreon. I don't want to say them on here. But anyways, back to this one. Taking matters into your own hands help them get the sex you want. So he tells nice guys, no one was put in this world to meet your needs but you. It's a nice way to put it. I've always put it, nobody wipes your ass every day on the toilet without complaint but you. So try treating that guy like he's worth a damn. When recovering nice guys decide to take responsibility and take matters in their own hands, they put themselves in a position to get the quality and quantity they want. Let me explain. A significant behavior pattern are the sum of many, many smaller behavior patterns. The most effective way to change a pattern is to change the smallest elements. This here, huge point, because a lot of the self-help space, the self-improvement guys, all those like gurus, they always talk about the positive power, thinking your way to health, and like there's the secret, yeah, but there's also the guys that's like, dude, it's your vibes, it's your energy, it's your chakra. It's always about the mental game. It's not how it works. Maybe it's how it works for girls. It's not how it works for guys. Our ability to have self-esteem is action-based. You do things, those things succeed, you get a small dopamine hit. That creates the feedback loop of self-esteem. So for guys, it just has to come through action. So the part I like about this strategy is you're picking small behaviors. And small behaviors are easy to change because you may have this nice guy mental model or this nice guy deep narrative in your head, and you'll fight it tooth and nail. Your ego fights it every time you try to change it, especially if you change like core elements of it. But when you change small little behavior patterns, it allows you to not wake the bear, I guess. And then as you continually do it, your mental model slowly starts to change to being more assertive, to be less of a nice guy, to be more of an alpha male, trademark 2.0. So you have to learn how to have, good experiences with yourself. So by taking matters into your own hands, practicing healthy. Again, he talks about the opposite of nofap, and I don't really care about this one way or the other. Do it or don't do it. I don't like nofap because it's a hiding the evidence kind of attitude and a hiding the evidence type of situation. And you can tell it happens because all of a sudden, you can tell when somebody is hiding something from their ego when the first thing they do when called out on it is start quoting statistics. Like they didn't make an educated decision based on this. They did something that emotionally resonated with them, and then they looked up as many statistics afterwards they could just throw at you until you're tired of hearing about it and just tell them to go piss off. I know for a lot of guys who are part of the church who treat, the hub as if it was some kind of like addiction, this part is probably going to be useful for you. I'm not going to bother reading it because, again, he just goes off about prawn and fantasies and like, dude, if you're getting what you want, it's not my job to judge or convince you one way or the other of it. And pretty much every guy loves prawn, and so that's just the way it works. And he goes, and again, saying no to bad sex helps you get the sex you want. I still can't believe he talks about like chat rooms and 900 numbers, so you can tell this book is a bit aged. And he asks, what does good sex look like? And if we base our answer on what we see, we only keep perpetuating a formula for bad sex. Here I define good sex, which is a really silly definition, by the way. His is like it consists of two people taking full responsibility for meeting their own needs. It has no goal. It's free of agendas and expectations. That sounds wonderful. I've had a much simpler goal, and that's just enthusiasm. Enthusiasm's all that matters. 10% technique, 90% enthusiasm. And then not really worrying about the other person getting off. The O-face is their responsibility, not yours. For the most part, though, like you're going to get fine when you have those little things in your head there. This is a hard chapter to do, by the way. I'm just not going to lie to you because there's so many stories and field reports that I could go into, but I'm just like, yeah, that little yellow icon is kind of preventing us. So this is one of those chapters you're really going to have to read for yourself. He goes into more stories, some more breaking free exercises. Following examples of the bull moose helps you get the sex you want. So in nature, the alpha male and the bull moose don't sit around trying to figure out what will make girls like them. They are just themselves, fierce, strong, competitive, and proud. Because they are what they are and do what they do, prospective mates are attracted. As in nature, the greatest aphrodisiac is self-confidence. I would argue the greatest aphrodisiac is looking hot and acting with self-confidence, but whatever. We're quibbling over semantics here. I always give that joke when girls talk about, well, I have this and I have that. I'm like, all right, well, if you had all that stuff and you were a fat girl, would guys still want you? And most people shut up right then. So for a guy, like being attractive, you don't have to be supermodel attractive, but at least not unattractive physically. The self-confidence then starts to come. It's what they call a force multiplier. And the problems with force multipliers is you need to have something above a 1. Like 0 times anything is still 0. Again, he uses a bunch of container words here like self-respect, courage, and integrity. We've had tons of game episodes on our podcast, Rule Zero Live. I've also talked about it on mine with Carl, Red Morning. There is tons of examples of what attractive behaviors are. And most of the pickup space has examined them at length. So there's pretty much nothing new under the sun there. I would argue, as long as your source doesn't use the words Chad or looks max, you're most likely going to have a good enough source as to what you need. And most people intuitively know how to look attractive anyway. Well groomed, good hygiene, good teeth, dressed well, physically fit. It's basically it. Height, I mean, you can't change height, but being taller tends to be more attractive up to a point. But like I said, if it's something you can't change, I wouldn't really focus on it at all. Anyways, I'll end it on this one here. He talks about a force of nature. So the very thing that makes it so exciting is exactly what makes it so terrifying. Sex is powerful, chaotic, and wild. It crackles with cosmic energy. It draws us like a moth to the flame. As recovering nice guys release their shame and fear, take responsibility for their own pleasure, refuse to settle for bad sex, and practice being just who they are, they put themselves in a position to embrace this cosmic force without fear or reservation. And that's when things get really good. Again, yeah. If you need those kind of affirmations and those good feels and these like nice container words, fill your boots. It's glad that they're there, but for me, I find it's a much more practical expectation to just ditch them all and deal with the core of it. Be attractive, don't be unattractive. Go after what you want, don't fear rejection. Don't be afraid to walk away from something if it's not working for you, which is abundance. And if you learn nothing else about abundance, learn that abundance is what allows you to enforce your boundaries without fear of loss. I guess the best way to put it. So on this one's going to be a shorter one. Normally these run for an hour, but we seem to have crushed this one in about 30 minutes. So this is good, so far so good. Feel free, go back, check the last 8 episodes, and we're going to do the next one tomorrow. So enjoy yourselves on this one, guys. Before I go, though, I'll do a quick chat. Make sure I didn't miss anybody on a super chat. All right, we're good. Also, huge shout out to Chesty Rockwell in the chat there. Awesome moderator for the channel, and easily as switched on as me, if not more. Anyways, boys, I'll catch you on the next one.